Hello guys, this is me, Cryonase. If you are watching this video, then you probably know me from my Twitter or Instagram account. And yeah, this is going to be my first video. But this is the first time I am recording myself speaking in English, trying to hide my thick French accent. I just only hope that I'm understandable throughout the whole video. So, what is this video going to be? You have read it on the title, but I am going to teach you in this tutorial the way I make these 3D abstract NeoY2K slash metal heart renders. So this is what you are seeing on the screen right now, and this is what I do to pass the time because I love to do this and people seem to like it too. So I just really wanted to share my process, maybe some tips and tricks, maybe teach you a new things or two. This tutorial is going to be split into two parts. The first one is obviously going to be the 3D part, which is going to happen on Blender. So you already have heard of Blender, probably. And this is a 3D software entirely free that you can use. Just make sure to use a version that has the same features as me, or if you are not using Blender, just make sure that what I'm going to use in the tutorial is in your software as well. Then the second part is going to focus on Adobe Illustrator, which is a vectorial art software, I guess you could call it that way. And yeah, I would like to clarify that this video isn't going to teach you how to use Blender or Illustrator. So if you are not familiar with these two software but you'd like to learn them, then I'm sorry, but this video is not going to be for you. What I'd recommend is to watch maybe Blender Guru or maybe a tutorial on Adobe Illustrator if you are interested, to learn how to actually navigate into these two softwares, and then come back to this video if you are still feeling inspired or if you still want to learn how to make what I do. So, Blender. As I said, the first part of this video is going to be on Blender. Just a little bit of explanation before we actually begin the tutorial. What are these 3D abstract NeoY2K slash metal heart renders that you can see on the internet? It is simply geometry that has been deformed heavily. So the first step to have heavily deformed geometry would be to put geometry on our 3D scene, and this is what I'm going to do. So Shift A to bring up this little menu, and then we can add geometry. So what I like to begin with usually is a torus, but know that you can't begin with anything. You could, for example, begin with a monkey, or you could definitely begin with, I don't know, maybe a teacup that you have modeled yourself. You could probably begin with a character model. You could also begin with a curve. By the way, we are going to see this later. If you are looking for more metal heart oriented aspects to your production, then you could totally begin with a model that you modify heavily to make these kind of trash 3D shape, I guess. As you can see here, I'm just selecting some random faces and then extruding and moving them randomly, and you could definitely work with this as a base. Okay, so now that we have a geometry to deform, an important step would be to add some more geometry to it. As you can see, the mesh is not really dense, it's not really low poly, but it's not gonna be enough for any crazy deformation that we actually wanna achieve. So for that, I will simply press Ctrl and then maybe 2, and this will bring a subdivision modifier in the modifier tab. What does it do? It simply adds more geometry to our shape. So as you can see, we have more faces showing up here, but in the mesh we actually only have this. This is because the subdivision modifier isn't applied. As I have a medium hand PC, I can allow myself to press Ctrl 4 if it works, please, which will add even more geometry. And now our shape looks smooth, but it's not actually smooth. Just a little thing, if we go in the statistics, you can see that a simple torus like this has 100,047 faces, which is a lot for a simple torus. We are almost done. The last thing to do is simply click, right click, I think, and select Shade Smooth. So now Blender understands that we actually want this shape to be shaded smooth. Alright, so now that we have a geometry that is prepared to be deformed, let's deform it. To do that, you go into the modifier tabs and then you click on add modifier and then look for the deform section and then look for a modifier called simple deform. And this little modifier is going to simply deform our shape by 4 parameters. So the first one, as you are seeing, is going to be twisting, which is pretty self-explanatory. As you can see, I can twist my shape. Then you have the axis, which you want your shape to be twisted. So for example, as you can see, I am twisting my torus in the x-axis, but I could definitely do it in the y-axis. And then you are not going to see it in the z-axis. As you can see, this is not doing anything much, but it is actually doing something to the geometry. Then the second deformation is simply the bending. It gives some weird results sometimes. As you can see in the x and y axis, it kinda looks like a tennis ball. It's quite weird, but it can definitely be useful. Then you have the taper option, which is going to, if I decrease it, shrink one side of your shape and then expand the other one. And then the last one is stretching, which is simply stretching your shape. As you can see here, if I increase the value, it is stretching it more. If you increase it even more, you are getting this kind of weird shape. So I'll just go back to twisting, put this on the x-axis and twisting it to the fullest. As you can see, there is this option in the modifier tab which is called origin. What is an origin? For most placed objects, the origin is going to be at the center of an object. If I zoom, you can see the little orange dot that is going to move with the object. This is the origin. This is a point of reference for anything that is scaling, for example, rotating. This is also the reference point of the twisting, bending, tapering, or stretching. There is a way to change this origin. It is simply by going to edit mode and then moving your geometry. It is going to change the point of origin. Now you can see that the origin right here, the orange dot, is not in the center anymore. If you want to fix that, you can simply right click and set origin to geometry, or maybe geometry to origin or center of mass or whatever. And as you can see, when I move my shape around the point of origin, this will change how the twisting is affected. And now we can simply add another object, for example an empty, which is an object that won't show up in rendering. And we could definitely do something cool, which is by clicking on the little eyedropper of the origin section of the simple deform, you can simply select your empty, and now the empty is going to be the point of reference of the twist of the simple deform modifier, which can give you awesome results depending on how to you place them. For example, if I move, you can see that it is affecting in real time the deformation. Alright, so now that we know how to use the simple deform modifier, this is where the stuff gets crazy. I'll simply have my preferred parameters to begin, which is a simple taper set to 6. And then as the taper is happening on the x-axis, I will scale my object on the x-axis as well, which gives me this nice cool basic shape. I will then press Ctrl A and apply the scale. And now, as you can see, as I go into editor mode, my torus that has every modifier not applied yet is now stretched. That's great, but this is not really crazy. And this is where the magic happens, by simply duplicating this simple deform modifier by clicking on it and then pressing Shift D. It will simply add a simple deform on top of another simple deform. As you can see, this is already making crazy results, but this is not what I like, so I can simply change it. For example, I can twist it on the x-axis, and as you can see, we have something like this happening. And this is already cool. And now I can simply duplicate it once more and maybe set its twisting to Y, and I have something like this. Or maybe I can set it to Z and we have something like this. Pretty symmetrical. Cool. And now I can simply add another modifier. I can simply add another simple deform and set it to bend, maybe on the y-axis, and maybe bring one more taper x-axis to have something like this, maybe stretching. And yeah, so this is where you start to see how the magic is happening. So yeah, I don't really like this shape, so I can simply delete any simple deform that I want. I will simply beginning back with a 6-factor x-axis taper simple deform. I'm not saying this in order, but you understand what I'm saying. And I will bring the twisting back too. Then maybe bring a bend here to have this forming. And then this is just a game of stacking them to achieve something that you actually like. For example, I really like this one, so I can keep it and work things out from here. And yeah, you test things until you find something beautiful. For example, I really like this one. It is just a shame that this shape is really gigantic, but it won't really be much of a problem once we are rendering, so I will keep it. I will toggle the stacks so you can see that we know how one subdivision modifier and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 simple deform modifiers, and they all stack from top to bottom. If we want a more complex composition, then you will have to add objects, and for that there is 2 ways. The first one would simply to redo. Hey, there's actually 3 ways, sorry. The first one would be to actually redo everything we have seen just before, which is spawning a new torus, new subdivision, if you want to, and then new simple deform, like this, and blah blah blah. You see it. But you could also be selecting your shape and pressing Shift D. You duplicate it and then rotate it, and then changing some parameters. As you can see, now we have something cool like this, but I won't be keeping it. And then the last way to change your shape would be simply to go into edit mode and then click Shift D while you have selected your shape entirely, and then you can simply have 2 shapes that has the same modifier stack, and then from here you can simply rotate your shape and maybe do something cool like this. And yeah, you figure stuff out. For example, This is already cool, but we have something like this that goes out really far away. It doesn't matter, because I think I already have an idea of what I want. Alright, that's cool. I will just shrink this one like this, and maybe rotate it this way. And from there you have this. And by the way, nothing prevents you to press Shift A again and bring a new object in here. For example, I could simply bring a cube. I am wondering something, guys. There is a storm going on right now. I wonder if you can hear it. I'm sorry if this is a problem, but yeah, I can't fight nature. So as you can see, I have bring a cube, and now it is also subdivided. Sorry, and it hasn't been set shade to smooth. And yeah, be just careful, guys. If you add geometry, the subdivision modifier is going to work on top of that geometry as well. So if you try to add, for example, a heavy geometry object into an already subdivided, wow, so you guys will definitely hear the storm. Anyway, if you add a very heavy topology shape to your already subdivided geometry, this could probably cause some problem, so be careful. So yeah, we have this, and now nothing prevents me from duplicate it. Watch out for that as well. So now that we have this, it is now up to you to do pretty much everything you want. For example, as for me, I do not have any idea of what I can do with this, but as for me, the way I do art is going with the flow, or maybe sometime I have a very precise idea. It is up to you to discover what you like with this method. I don't know how to pronounce this word, but yeah, this is really up to you. What I usually like to do when I do NeoY2K 3D abstract shape like this is to, as you can see right now, we have this kind of joining happening here. Whoops. This joining happening here and happening here as well. So what I like to do is to bring them together pretty close. So we have an effect of maybe an explosion. It is just something that I think looks cool. So from now on, I think I will speed up the process to figure things out until I make something look cool. I will sometimes tell some tips or tricks, maybe. But yeah, so see you guys in a moment. As you guys proceed to do your composition, it is pretty interesting to rotate around it. You can see some angles that might be more interesting than the one you are going with. For example, I thought I could probably have this piece to be angled right here, but I probably like it more this way. So yeah, this is up to you once again to do whatever you want, but be sure to have every angles noted in the back of your mind so you can have maybe something that will please you more. A tip that I really like to use is using a curve. So as you can see here, wow. I'm sorry guys, I can't really control nature. Whatever. So as I said, having a curve is quite practical. As you can see, it doesn't have geometry, but anchor points. Let's work with it. So let's get into the data property. Well, the curve is selected, and make sure the curve is 3D. So we can then go to geometry and then to the bevel tab, select round. You could definitely work with objects, but I'm not going to explain that in this video. And then you can bring the depth up, and then you can see that a torus begins to appear. The thing is that you can control how and at any point how thick you want it to be, and then you can also choose its resolution. Now I have something pretty smoother, and now you can go back to the modifier tab, and maybe you can bring a subdivision modifier by pressing Ctrl 2. Don't be too reckless with the subdivision modifier, as I said before. And you can simply bring a simple deform again. I will then go into edit mode and scale my torus to be bigger, wider, I guess, and bring some value, bring some simple deform in here, so I can have something that goes like this. There is something that I haven't mentioned, but having the subdivision modifier at the start or the bottom can give you pretty different results. It shouldn't change that much, but I usually like to have it at the start. But sometimes it is also fine to have it at the end. And I think this is where I stop for the composition. I think this is actually pretty good. Okay, so now that I think I am done, and when you think you are done too, we are going to work on the camera. I am just going to put a new camera by pressing Shift A and selecting camera, as you can see now. And I will now go into a little menu that is here. I don't think you can see it pretty well. I don't know the name of this menu, but it is just beside the gizmo, the thing that says XYZ. And you can go into the view section and check camera to view. If you press 0 on your numeric pad, you will go instantly to camera view, and then from now on you can simply move your camera and you can move your view, sorry, and this will move the camera as well. So now we have the camera. So as you can see, I have placed it like this, but there are multiple ways for you to place a camera. First off, I would like you to go into the camera data and go into the viewport display and increase the passepartout, say it in French, I can say it because I am French. You can increase the passepartout to 1, so now everything that is outside of the camera becomes black, so you can have a better understanding and a better view of what the final project could be. Then you can go under the passepartout, go into the composition guides menu, and you can select any composition that you'd like to have. I don't think I need really complex composition, so what I'm going to do is simply have this diagonal like this. As you can see, it's pretty cool, and have the center of this explosion thing here at the bottom left of the third composition. And now as you can see, we have already something pretty cool, and in order to avoid to edit the camera position, I will simply uncheck the camera to view, so now I am free to zoom and go outside of the camera view, and you can then press 0 again to get to the camera view. One thing that most people see in the NeoY2K community, especially in metal hearts, what they like to do is to reduce the focal length. So what's the focal length? This value, the lower it is, the more distorted everything will look. As you can see, this shape isn't supposed to be this big, but because the focal length is small, it will distort. On the other hand, the higher this value will be, the more zoomed your image will appear, but also the flatter it will appear. What people like to do is to give this a low value, so then when you get that camera really close to your structure, you have then this effect of deformation, which is, I guess, super cool, but this is not what I really like to do. So usually I have a focal length of 35 millimeters. Okay, so now that we have something like this, I will simply get this out of my view, as well as the gizmo, but it shouldn't matter. And now what I like to press is Shift Alt Z, and it will hide all the overlays, which includes when you select an object, the outline, the orange outline of this object, or maybe the guides, or the grid, or whatever. And what it does, it allows you to have a clearer view of your composition. I will simply move the camera away a little bit more, and for that you can simply select first your camera, press G and then press Z twice, which will allow you to slide it according to its own Z-axis. So that's it for already the fifth step, and now we will proceed to the sixth. I don't think I pronounce it quite well, but the fifth step is simply add some particles. This is going to give some more depth into our scene. This is totally up to you if you want some or not. I put some in this tutorial because I just wanted to share with you guys what could be achieved with a simple setup. So, to make any particles, well, first off, let's get off of the camera view, and I will simply create a new collection. I will name this one particles, and now I will hide pretty much everything else that isn't useful for now. The way you make particles is how you want, and I will explain one way to do it. So what I'm going to do for particles are these Fruitiger Metro rounds. I really like them. They are very basic and they work well, so this is what I'm going to do. And to achieve that, I'm simply going to take a circle in the mesh section. You have this here. I will decrease, I think, the number of vertices, so I will put it to 16 maybe. And yeah, that will definitely be enough. I will go into edit mode, then press 1 then A to select all my vertices, and then extrude them. Right click to put them where they were before the extrusion, scale them down, which will make a sort of circle, which is good. Now I will simply press Shift D to duplicate the inner vertices and then scale them down until I like it. And then I will simply go to Face, this little menu here, and select Grid Fill, automatically fill the circle for us without making a mess. So this is what we have, and if you think this is too low poly, you can probably put a subdivision modifier on it. I will apply it, and as you can see we have some more geometry. I will delete these. I will dissolve these edges because they are not required, and now we already have one particle. This is great, but you can have more simply by duplicating them, right, like this, and change some things. For example, I want the circles to be thicker, but I want the disk inside to be smaller. Shrink this little guy in the middle. I can press L while hovering over it. This will select the whole island, shrink it, and we have already a second furniture metro round shape. I will duplicate it once more, press L, and then have this, so I have a heavy disk and a lighter circle, and we already have 3 particles. Then I can take these 3 and duplicate them, move them away, and now by pressing L on each circles, you can select all of them and delete them, and now we have rounds as well. Just like that, we have 6 particles. Okay, so now everything is well renamed. I also made a collection for every scene related object, which will be the camera and then the light point. And now we have these particles. Great, great. So now everything that I have hidden, I will make them appear, and I will right click on the collection where the particles are, and I will select objects and move them away. We won't need them for now, because now we are going to set up our particle environment. For that, I press the 0 to get back to the camera view, and I will make a cube appear, just like this. I will then scale it like this, so it takes only the view of the camera. Okay, that's great. And now I will proceed to set up a particle simulation, and for that we are simply going to go into the particle tab. You click on the plus symbol. This will add a particle system to the cube. Now we have many parameters to change in order to have nice particles everywhere in our scene. Okay guys, I gotta be honest with you, while doing the particle system I ran into a little problem that was very stupid. Just before you actually begin to make a particle system, make sure that your cube isn't placed into the particle collection. This will cause some problems and your particles won't show. So from now on guys, I would like you to follow these steps in order. This will help you more, then you can modify every parameters you want. So the first thing you are going to do is to decrease the number of particles in order to avoid any lagging, bugging or everything. Do as you feel you can with your computer. The frame start. This is the frame where the particles are going to start generate. By default you are on frame 1 and the frame start is frame 1, 2. Which means that not all the 750 particles will generate on frame 1. You can simply put minus 200 or maybe minus whatever you want to make all the particles appear. And now you are seeing all these little dots are appearing. Scroll down in order to get to the render tab, and you can see it is marked as render as yellow. So we are not talking about the video game, we are talking about these little dots. That's not what we want as particles, so we simply change it to collection. This will bring a menu down, instance collection, and we now want to instance our particles that we made here. So we simply select particles. Now as you can see, the particles are showing, but they are really small. See this one? They're really small. This is because now the scale of the particles depends on this parameter, which is by default set by 0.050, which is quite small. We actually want our particle to be the same size of these particles, the actual ones. So this is simple, we simply type 1, and this now will be the size of our particles. But now as you can see, some particles are spawning inside the cube and we don't see because the cube is here anyway. So we simply uncheck the show emitter in render and then show emitter in the viewport display. This is great. I have made a mistake, guys. Make sure that the origin of your particles, you remember this is the little orange dot, is situated in the center of your particles. And now, as you can see, they are generating in the right place. Great. So now we have particles, but this is kinda boring. They all have the same size in rotation. So to change that, go back to the render tab, and in the scale randomness, this is up to you. You choose a number to have. The randomness of the scaling will happen between either your scale 1 or this one, which is, for example, 900. But the thing is, if you crank up this up to 1, then you will have small particles, and particles will shrink actually to be unseeable. So keep it like something like 7050, or maybe 5000, sorry guys, 500 or 750. Something that will prevent you to have a small particle. For example, I don't really like these ones, so I will simply put like 250. Now, as you can see, they are here, but the rotation is quite boring right now. They are all flat. This is not good. So to change that, we will simply go into the rotation tab, check it, and then randomize. We crank that up to 1, so it rotates. And now this is up to you to make some customization. For example, as you can see, we don't see much particles going on here, so I could totally shrink the particle emitter, maybe move it, and size it like this back, and now we have some particles going on. You could also change the seed. Each seed has its own generation of particles, and they are strictly the same, which means that, for example, if I go on scene 1, I don't like it, I go on seed 2, but I don't like seed 2, I go at seed 1, and seed 1 is the same as it will ever be. Now, yeah, if I press play, you can see these particles fall, and this is another way to see which particle you can generate and anything else. It is really up to you guys to see something that you like. Just make sure that once you are done with the particles, you move this one away. They don't show up in the end result. And yeah, I think I am satisfied with these particles. I will keep the seed 10 because I think it is the best, and yeah, I think it is now done for the particles. So now that we are done for the particle system, the composition, the thing is going to be about adding colors and shading to our artwork. Before beginning anything with the shading tab, any texture, anything, it is important that you select Eevee as your render engine. It should be Eevee by default, but for a little explanation, Cycles is meant to be more realistic. Eevee is meant for cell shading, it is not ray tracing, it is not doing any complicated calculation, it is not demanding on your graphic card. And there is a way to make Eevee realistic. You could, but this is not the subject of this video. You just need Eevee because this is what will be easier for us. After selecting Eevee as the render engine, make sure that you have these parameters the same as me. By default, you should either have AGX or Filmic. If you already have standard by default, then that's good. but what it will make is that Filmic and AGX are meant for more realistic renders, which means that when we are going to make our shading, some colors might appear less saturated as you have selected them. Standard is going to take your color and exactly output that, which means that if you want really saturated colors, you are going to get exactly that. Then you can change the contrast. I usually like to go with medium high contrast, but you can go pretty much everything you want. This should be enough. So I am going to go into the shading workspace, and this is where we are. So as you can see, pretty much everything has changed. Everything is white. We have a nice nature in the background, and we have some windows that we don't want. So I will just get rid of them, and I will simply go back into the camera view, and then I will change the view mode by pressing Z and go onto rendered. As you can see, our scene is all gray. This is because we do not have any light source. So what I usually like for light source is adding a sun. As you can see, I have added a sun. Make sure to not add the sun into the particle collection. And now the sun is going to act everywhere on the scene, so that means proximity of your light is not going to affect it. Look, for example, I could get the sun near the structure and the lighting would be the same. So usually I like to get it out of the way of the composition. Then maybe I can go back to the layout tab just to make some things. And if you don't like the orientation of your light, you can simply press Shift T. This will orient the direction of the light of your sun to your cursor, which will allow to customize it pretty freely. For example, I want maybe the sun to go this way, like this. Now we have that much light going on here. That is great. And one thing you could do, that I'm not going to do, but you can do it, is to duplicate your sun and then orient it upwards. So now you have a light coming from under and a light coming from above. If you want to have less strength on one of your sun, it is possible. For example, as you can see, I have a strength of 1 for the sun that comes from above, and I could definitely have a sun with a strength of like 250 for the light that come below. And now you see you have nice lighting everywhere. That is great. This is not what I'm going to do though. So what I'm going to do instead, I am going to use this will allow me to have a global lighting. You have an HDRI, all you have to do is to go into the World tab properties, and as you can see we have this menu. In the color you can see this is gray, and this is the gray of the background. If I change it, it becomes maybe blue because I selected blue. This is indigo maybe. You can now click on this yellow dot you see here and select environment texture. Now everything will appear pink. This is normal because we have selected environment texture. We need a texture for that, and if you don't include a texture, Blender will default the texture by pink. So now this is the moment where I choose a texture. I have some selected here. As you can see, HDRIs are these horizontal images. You can choose anyone you like. You can find some for free onto the internet. I will select this one because I like it. No, actually I will select this one, because now if I exit the camera, you can see it has a nice light source here. Now as you can see, the strength of the lighting from the environment is too strong, so what you usually do is to decrease the strength, and I can decrease it to maybe 500. It depends on the image. Well, as for me, I think I will decrease the strength to 250. And now it is cool, but this is going to be rendered. And we don't want that. We don't want a photo of a realistic thing, cel shaded NeoY2K shapes. So what we are going to do is going to render, going into film, and check transparent, which will allow you to make the background disappear, but once you export your render, it will also be transparent. We'll talk about this later. As from now, everything is good. So let's get started with the cel shading. So for that, you go into the shading tab that we have gone to earlier, and you click on this little ball icon here, and you can select material, and this will make appear two nodes. So if you are unfamiliar with Blender, this is why I told you to go check another video. If you are not familiar with nodes, shading or whatever in Blender, this is going to be pretty simple. As you can see, here is our principled BSDF, which will control all the metallicness, the roughness, and this is what you are going to find in every default textures. We are not interested in that, so we can simply put it aside but not get rid of it. What we are interested into is simply a node called shader to RGB. This is what is going to allow the shader to become a cel shaded shading, as simple as that. This is going to take the values this and convert it to RGB, and then with these RGB values and information, we can simply add a color ramp node. So the color ramp is taking every information about lighting on this shape, and it is converting it to whatever we have put into the color ramp. So for example, if I go here and take this and put it to white and maybe to pink, you can see now that every area that should be shaded with black is now shaded with pink. And this is great. This is one step away from the actual cel shading. To achieve a cel shading, this is pretty simple. You go into the list, this little menu, and you select constant. Now everything is pink and it's quite ugly, but watch what happens when I simply take this stop here and drag it here. You can already see the effect has already appeared, and now you can see that because there isn't no gradient anymore, it is just constant. There isn't gradient on our shape either. It is simply going from a color to another without any transition. This is what constant means. And now from here you can add any stops that you want and play with them. So for example, I have the last one is pink like this, but I could probably want it to be green like this one, and maybe bring its value down, maybe go for a greener green like this, and I want this pink to be a more greenish tint. Be sure to not use very saturated colors. This is going to be very harsh on the eye, so maybe don't crank that up like this. Go here like this. I really like this shade of green. I will simply decrease the value just for it to not be entirely white, and I am not going to keep the entire white thing. I'm simply going to put a subtle greenish tint to it, even though you could definitely keep it entirely white I am saying that you shouldn't keep your white entirely white because it's gonna be hurting your eyes and the eyes of the spectator as well. But this isn't something I follow by myself, so I think I'll be keeping it white like this. And actually, I think I'll even delete the white stop and then rework that green like this to have a better green, something like this. Something like this is okay. Something like this is going to be okay in my opinion. I will then unisolate the shape, and now as you can see we have a cell-shaded shape, while everything else is shaded by default. So we're going to be selecting this shape, for example, and apply it the same texture. And now we can simply select this last one as well and apply the shading to this one, and there is a last one too. Ta-da! And now everything is green. So the way you color your artwork is up to you. And for example, I don't want all my shapes to be green. I want to have a color combo going on in here. So what I will do is simply take the shape I want to change the color of, and as you can see in the material there is a 5. This means that 5 objects are using this material. If you want to, you can click on this 5 and this will create a new material using the same nodes, but it is just not the same material anymore. As you can see, you have the first material and then you have a copy of this material. I will rename this one pink. Pinok made a typo, and this one will be called green. I will go back to pink. As you can see, when no object uses a texture, there is a 0 in front of it. And now you could do many things to change the color. You could, for example, have a hue saturation value node that you can put here. And what this will do, if you change the hue of this, you can simply circle between many colors. So this is a shortcut that you could be using. As for me, I just like to do it by hand because I have more control of colors I choose. And this is what we have now. So yeah, that's a lot of green, that's a lot of pink. I think I'll just take one shape and duplicate its material and name this one to white. And now I'll be going over the flat shading. As you can see, this is already happening. This is just black, and this is going to be even simpler than what we have done earlier. We just need a node called RGB, and we are going to directly plug it into the material output, and this is going to output a simple color. And now you can see that my shape is only white, strictly white. It doesn't have any shading on it, and this is great. This is what I wanted. Now we can simply select all our particles, put a what material on it, but then you might notice that one of them is only white. So for that, you simply select all of them and then this one at the end. And then you go into the material tab, and then you look into this little arrow and you select copy material to selected, and then every particles will be shaded with the material of this one. Click on 0 to get back to the view again, and yeah, we know how our composition technically entirely done. Now the last step is pretty easy. We just have to render it, and for that you just press F12. This will bring up this nice windows, that is the rendering window, and you have your output. This is what you are left with, your creation. And now you just have to save it. For that you go to image and save. Usually what you are going to save it is with a PNG, because a JPEG doesn't support the alpha channel. And what is the alpha channel? This is simple. This is simply the channel of transparency. I told about it earlier. Everything you see with a checkerboard pattern is supposed to be transparent. So if you save your image as a JPEG, this won't be transparent anymore. Anyway, you have some parameters you can play with if you want to. Just don't forget to name it. Now we are done with Blender. The next step will then now bring us to Illustrator for the second part of this tutorial. This isn't going to be too complicated. You have now your design in 3D. You might have it with a transparent background or not. It is how you prefer it. But now that we are on now that we are in Illustrator, what you simply need to do is to create a new file. As you can see, I have already set up the file to be the exact same size as my image. Also, I have set the colors to RGB. You can go with CYMK if you want to, but know that it will change your colors. And here the DPI is depending if you want to print your artwork. In fact, if you want to print your artwork, you will have to go with CYMK most of the time, and then you will have to go with 300 DPI. Because I won't be printing my artwork, I will use RGB color space, sorry, and I will use a DPI of like 72, which is the norm, the standard, and I will create my file. This will bring you to this menu, and I will simply now import my artwork by going into my folders and drag it into my file. So this is what I have, and I will drag it here, and now this is what I have on my Canva in Illustrator. So this is great. You can see that Illustrator is having some artifacts that won't be too seen, but it is trying to show me that there is white on top of white by having a outline, a weird outline. This won't show up anymore because everything we need to do to get rid of this is simply to put a background. So I will just take my rectangle tool and trace a rectangle so it goes all over the Canva, the workspace, and then put it under under my image, and then I will simply change its color to something I really like. So for example, it could be green, sorry, could be a gradient, could be this pink, for example, could be blue like this, or a blue like this, maybe. So I'm just going to look for a color. Don't have to use a color from the color swatches. You can simply go here and select a color that you like. And yeah, for example, I think I really like that. I also really like the green, but I also like the purple, and the pink goes well too, and the blue goes well too, but not as well as the green. So I think I'll settle for a nice purple like this. This could be good. Maybe tone it down a little bit. And yeah, that's great. So now that we have this, and sometimes we still have the little artifacts spawning, but it should be okay. Now that we have this, it is simply up to you to look for a nice composition that you like. As for me, for example, maybe I will go by shrinking this and maybe do some little things surrounding the composition. Like for example, I can have this right here, this right here, and maybe have some shapes um, all around. So yeah, you can think about it. As for now, I think I will speed up the process where I don't say anything, um, just to make sure that this video isn't too long, and then sometimes it will slow down if I have some little things to say. Hello guys, this is still me, Cryonaze. You might hear a voice change or two. This is because I'm currently talking to you while editing this video. I'm almost done at the time I'm talking to you, and this video is 1 hour long. So I thought that speeding up the whole Adobe Illustrator process would be kinda easier for you guys to digest. And simply I didn't tell a lot of what I was doing as I was making this artwork, so I'm simply going to have a sort of live reaction to what I'm doing and explaining what you can do, what I'm doing. So as you can see, I'm tracing a rectangle the size of my canvas and then using the offset path to make a smaller rectangle inside of the bigger rectangle, which will then allow me to have a white border when subtracting the smaller rectangle with the bigger. And now I am adding some rectangles and triangle shapes to the border, then fusing them together with the Pathfinder add option, and then I'm just rounding the corners so we have a nice white border that has some cool shapes. I am still struggling with the color, and now as you can see I am adding my logo, but that's not all, because I'm also going to add some of my shapes that I've made, and they are also available to you guys. So what you are seeing on the screen right now is me using some of my packs that I've made available for free on Gumroad. So if you are interested to have some bits and freebies from me, you can check my Gumroad. A link will be provided in the description. It will send you to my website, madeoncard.co, and with that you will have all my socials, that is Twitter or Instagram, and my Gumroad as well. So now what you are seeing is me using my metable shapes, and I am warping them with the tool that I don't remember the name of. I'm sorry guys, but it allows you to have some cool perspective effect, and I am just adding this one shape behind the whole 3D render. And now as you can see, I'm trying to crank some more shapes in there. And one thing I really like to do is having smaller shapes in the corners, because I just think it adds a lot of volume. I'm sorry guys, I'm currently struggling to speak English, I guess in a live reaction. I haven't made it easy for me because the video is really sped up. As you can see now, I'm reusing the offset path tool option, whatever, in Illustrator to make an inner outline. And now I'm still using some of these little shapes that I've made, trying to find a way to put them somewhere where they'll look nice. And now I'm working on my logo. Usually I don't really warp my logo, but looks like I did on this artwork. Sometimes the screen might be black. I think it's okay. Sorry guys if it bothers. Whoa, sorry guys. Sorry if it bothers you. So struggling speaking English out there. As you can notice, I have changed the metaball color in the background for a lighter purple. This is because if it was white, I then couldn't put any details that would be white colored. So instead I went for a light purple, then adding some font typography, adding some random words that I like the sound of. And if I have to be honest with you guys, I kinda struggled to have something interesting going on here. Usually when I make my art, I have a clear idea of what I wanna do, or I'm just going with the flow. And in this case, I was just going with the flow. So I found out that having a full purple text on top of a white and purple outlined text would look cool. So I kept that, and then I'm just trying to figure out where to put my logo. And it's a nice coincidence that I have made a little crevice for it to rest. Still trying to crank some metaball shapes, and as you can see, I will find a way to put this one in. Yeah, I just put it here, and just to be sure that the text is readable, I have now the white outline shape on top of the purple shape. And now it's just a matter of adding more shapes to the composition. So yes, this is why I sped up the whole process. This is because this would have took another 30 minutes, I think, to explain all of this, while I can simply explain what I'm doing right now for like 10 minutes. As you can see now, I'm trying to mess around with arrows. If you know me, I think you know that I really like arrows. I have used a lot of them in a lot of my artworks. Maybe not a lot of my artworks, but yeah, I really like them. I'm trying to figure out stuff with it, and I don't think I have kept them this way. It's because I simply didn't find a nice position for them, a nice thing going on for them, so instead I got rid of them, and now I'm just renaming my layers. Not really the most interesting part, but yeah, it is not negligible if you wanna have a clearer workflow. And now, as you can see, I am manually cutting through the inner outline with the scissors. And this will allow me to have some cool thing going on, like some little dots and some little space. I just think it looks neat. I have been doing these kind of things for a long time. This is a trick I have learned, and I think it's cool. I have successfully found a way to put the metaball shapes I wanted to somewhere, and now I think I'm almost done for the creation. If I have to be honest with you guys, I'm live reacting to this, and I don't even remember what I did. So as you can see, you had a image of an orca. This is because my friend was modeling an orca, and I just wanted to see it. So as you can see right now, I'm simply adding some cool circles and how would you call them? I don't know how you would call this shape, but we have some strokes going on here, and they all begin from one point. So what I'm currently doing here is very basic perspective, and the whole point of this is to simply have lots of, I guess, little bits like debris going from one point, and they all explode. Sorry guys, I can't really explain correctly what perspective is, but the thing is, if you want to have the same thing, all your strokes must come from the same point. And now I'm just separating the outline with the filling color, so we can have a smoother transition with the intersecting geometry. And I think I'm almost done. Conclusion will be rather quick, and as you can see, I think I'm pretty done with the artwork. Okay, so that was a long video, but it is now finished, I think. This is the end result. This is appearing on the screen right now, and yeah, didn't think this video would be too long, and in fact I didn't think at all when starting to record this whole tutorial. And I just realized that a long video like this is not really what I wanted to do. So as I said on my twitter.com, I will redo this tutorial to be shorter, maybe 20 minutes or maybe even 10. I don't really know yet, but I just want to make something shorter for you guys. But if you manage to stay here, just let me know in the comments. That would really make me happy. And also let me know if you really like this type of long form video, I guess. This was more of a experimenting ground for me, as it is the first time, as I said at the beginning of this video, this is the first time I'm recording anything. So anyway, if you loved what you watched, don't forget to subscribe if you want to. A link in the description will redirect you, sorry, to my website where you can see all my socials, my Instagram, my Twitter account, whatever, my Gumroad, as I spoke of it earlier, if you are still interested in some freebies. And yeah, I thank you all guys for watching this video, and I think I'll be stopping here. See you next time.